Let's go.
Awesome. Okay, so what you see over here is actually the platform. We started dogfooding the platform around 3 to 4 days back. And since then, we've been doing communication and everything else on our platform. There's a few rough edges, but let me show you kind of the current flow and what we're shipped and what we're planning to ship as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start with creating a realm, right? You can see I already have one for Dimension, which is where our team is building, right? But I'm going to go ahead and create a realm. And over here, you can see that I'm going to go and create a realm called Fleet for one of my open source projects. I'm going to hit enter. It's created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wait, let me just turn on my keyboard shortcut visualizer. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and use G and S. That takes me to settings. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and first invite a team member to work with me. I can either enter their email. I can also add like an email domain, like everyone's email with X domain, kind of ending with X domain is able to join, or I can just send an invite link. So I'm just going to go ahead and send an invite link. And while he joins, I'm just going to go ahead and link a repository. So I need to link a repository to be able to view it and do other things that you will see soon with that repository directly on our platform. So that's done. I just linked the Fleet repository from the Dimension organization into this realm. And what I can go ahead and do is, yeah, there we go. Anton's in. And what I can do now is, since chat is one of the foundational features of our platform, I can go ahead and use GNC, and that opens chat. And you can see over here that I can go ahead and I can talk to Anton. And he's also going to be able to show you some of the cool features we have for code collaboration. So you can also react to things, right? You can go ahead and, it's pretty similar to any other communication tool. You can go ahead and react to things, and it'll show you, and also show you where we differ to the typical communication tools out there. So there we go. He just sent me some code. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I want to be able to collaborate on this code. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to suggest changes. I'm going to say GM instead, right? Hit enter. And now what you can see over here is if I click on this diff icon, I'm able to see what changes were made in this specific reply or suggestion.
Yeah, this is nice. This is nice.
And what I can also do is I can go ahead and, oh, and by the way, we tried some fancy stuff with chat, right? So what we kind of tried to do is we also actually built this, and I wouldn't say it's we don't really expect it to be super used, but we just wanted to build it to demonstrate what we can do with chat. So when someone pastes a link to a GitHub repository, if that repository is linked to this realm, for example, if I pasted a link to a file of Fleet into this chat, right, it would generate an embed directly on on chat, and if you reply to it, and if you like recommended changes, you can push those changes directly from chat onto GitHub. Like you can literally just talk about changes directly from here, select which changes you want to push, and push it all from chat. So that's one more thing we kind of ship. But I mean, that's going to take some time to demo, so I'm going to skip on that for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say we should meet up to talk about this. How about today? And you can see on the side that we have this calendar view through which I can see all the meetings that I have for today. And I can go ahead and, do /meet. And that should start a Google Meet directly from here. And I can just click on the join button, and that'll allow you to essentially join the meeting directly from chat. So that's how I use / commands to like schedule meetings. And we're also going to expand this a lot in the future. For example, you'll be able to deploy repositories directly from / commands. You'll be able to reference issues. You'll be able to reference tasks. You'll be able to complete actions directly from chat. So there's also, there's like a lot more there are reactions, there are replies, all the standard things you expect in chat are here. With that, let me take you to, and also I scheduled a slightly longer session with you today just to show you what we also want to build, and also just some general brainstorming. Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and now show you so I believe I already showed you some part of this in our previous call. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to use G&E. This opens the editor. You can see since I linked Fleet, I can directly view it over here, right? I'm going to expand this. You can see we have the same file tree, right? We also added guides over here so you can see where you are on the file tree. I can go ahead and open a file. Ooh, that's a tiny bug. I think it's because I was fiddling with this before, and it seems to have retained the state. So I'm just gonna go, yeah, that's a small bug. Sorry about that. So yeah, so I mean, if you can see, I can go ahead and view code. There's also split view, there's file tabs, right? And what you can also do actually is if I'm able to close this, okay, that's super weird. What I should be able to do though is I can go ahead and create a file, right? I can go ahead and create a file directly over here. Or what I can actually do over here. Yeah. So I'm just going to change the README a little bit to show you that you can actually change code and push it directly from Dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add like a space over here, right? I'm going to hit Command S to save it. And what I'm going to do is, if you can see over here, it shows M, which means that this specific file has been modified. And what I can do is I can go ahead and hit the commit button. I can add a message saying, I don't know, edit README. And then I can go ahead and see which files have been edited, and I can hit the commit button. And that's going to push the code and kind of push the changes I made to this README directly to the Fleet repository, right? So now if we go ahead and check Fleet on Dimension, if I just go ahead and check out Fleet, you can see it just says updated now, and I edited the README, and you can see over here that I added this space. So it's pushed directly from Dimension's Code Explorer directly onto GitHub. It's worth noting that we don't really want this to be like a Code Explorer that is kind of a replacement for your IDE. It's just similar to GitHub's Code Explorer, where you can browse through code and view code very easily, and it's great for like quick changes. So going back here, so that's what we've shipped over here. And you can also view pull requests and stuff, and you can also star and unstar your repository. I already showed you the history for commits before, so I'm not going to go over that again. So that's with the Code Explorer, right? Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and deploy something. I'm going to go ahead and use GD. That takes me to the Cloud tab, right? And what I can do over here is it's as it says over here, one tab in all your deployments, right? Whether you're deploying on Vercel, Netlify, Railway, Cloudflare Pages, or kind of whatever platform you're kind of using, you'll be able to view and manage your deployments directly from Dimension, right? So if I actually wanted to deploy a repository onto any of these services that Dimension integrates with, I can go ahead and use N. And that allows me to deploy a repository to either Vercel. Right now, we're only building for Vercel Netlify, and Railway is coming soon. And then eventually we'll branch on to Cloudflare Pages and Cloudflare Workers. But you can basically select like a repository. I mean, Fleet isn't necessarily like a web repository, so I can't deploy this. But essentially, you'll be able to kind of deploy directly by selecting the framework and the project name, and also just hitting the deploy button. But what you can do for now, what I'll show you is, and before I kind of I show you this, I need to integrate a couple platforms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and integrate Vercel into Dimension. And this just means that I install the app, the OAuth app over here that we've built. That's done. And I can also go ahead and integrate Netlify if I want to. There we go. And yeah, so now you can see that I've connected Vercel and Netlify, and this allows me to actually deploy and view deployments directly on Dimension. So going back using GD and going ahead, and the first thing I want to do is import existing deployments, because I don't want to deploy. I want to view my existing deployments directly on Dimension. So what I can do over here, so I can go ahead and select, for example, this is our main deployment, which is front end, right? But I can still import multiple of them. I can go ahead and hit enter. And if I also want to import something from Netlify, I can go ahead and select this over here. I have one Netlify deployment straight over here. What I can do now is I can go ahead and use 1 on my keyboard to actually navigate to the specific deployment. And what I can then do is I can go ahead and hit tab and shift tab to actually go forward and backwards on this top bar over here, right? And one very common case is that when I click on a deployment, I usually want to see like the most recent deployment, right? So what we did was we linked L to that. You can just hit L and it takes you to the latest deployment, right? And you can also do, I mean, we also support the kind of, you can also view the errors and warnings that are in this specific kind of build. So you can also view build logs, by the way, which you can see over here. And I can view all my deployments just over here, right? I can filter by environment, by status. And you can also go ahead and manage your domains, and you can also go ahead and manage your settings, right? So over here, you can see I have all my settings for this deployment. I can directly manage it directly from Dimension, right? And this basically allows you to to view all your deployments in one place while having super handy shortcuts to navigate through everything, right? You can also see this is for another Vercel deployment, and this is for a Netlify deployment, if you can see over here. So and by the way, kind of I think this is a default template build, which is why there are no build logs available for this. So this is how you can manage your deployments directly on the platform. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use GT. That allows me to create a team. So I'm going to go ahead and create a team. I don't know. I'm just going to call it OSS for open source or something. Hit enter and invite both members onto this team, right? And what I can do now, this is kind of the foundation for managing and building projects on Dimension, right? Which is being able to manage tasks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on link tasks. This allows me, and again, just a reminder, our project management tool is essentially a wrapper around GitHub issues with seamless GitHub sync, right? So what you can do over here is I can go ahead and select fleet, which is where I want to import things from, right? And then I can go ahead and just to double check, I think it's missing tags. Yeah, there we go. And what I can do over here is I can go ahead and click on this, and I'll be able to view all the issues and all the comments directly from GitHub, right? So what I can do is I can go ahead and tell Anton to comment on this, because I think if everything goes well, it should update in real time. Just telling Anton to do it. There we go. And by the way, in the meanwhile, let me show you the different things you can do from here. So what you can do is you can go ahead and add attachments to the specific task, right? You can attach links, you can attach, different things, right? And we're also going to essentially allow you to view all the latest deployments for this specific issue or for this specific pull request directly from the platform, right? And essentially, what I can also do actually, yeah, there we go. You can see it updated in real time. And this is basically, this shows that you have complete real-time sync with GitHub issues, right? So if someone also adds a reaction, you'll be able to see that directly from our platform. And you can also add a reaction directly over here, and it should show up on GitHub, right? So I'm going to close this out and go back over here. I want to create a task. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the task title, right? I can go ahead and say, improve documentation. Right? And we've also integrated AI into this, right? And this allows you to actually automatically tag different things directly from your title, right? Obviously, if you added a description, we'd be able to predict that much better. But in a sense, you can essentially, just select these, and it automatically selects the tags for you, and it'll create them when you create this issue on GitHub, right? I don't want to create a new issue, but what I want to do is I want to change the status of this, right? So how do I change the status? I just go ahead and move this into, let's say, in progress, right? And now if I go ahead and check this exact issue on GitHub, right? Or if I just go here and go to issues, you can see over here that it set the priority to medium and the status to in progress, right? So that's essentially how we're able to show what we can show on Dimension on GitHub as well is through tags, right? You can see that I added these two tags right now with the Dimension app.
Nice.
And you can also obviously change it to done if you want to, right? And if I add a comment over here, it's obviously going to sync with GitHub, right? So I mean, you'll be able to see all of the stuff that you can see on GitHub directly from here. And that's the idea with project management, right? Is building an experience like Linear while still having it perfectly synced with GitHub, right? So that's what we've kind of shipped over the past few months. And, I'm just excited to kind of get your thoughts on this. And also, I'd love to show you a few things we plan to build. So, we just started dogfooding, and we have a bunch of ideas and a bunch of things we can kind of take from other platforms, as well as, original ideas that we've thought about to improve our platform. So, I mean, I would really appreciate kind of any feedback on kind of what we have so far.
So first of all, always impressed with the velocity of your shipping. Also, the other thing is like you are doing all the design, right?
Yes.
Everything looks amazing. Like,
thank you.
You are a professional designer. Like, this is really good. Okay, this is small. So just don't keep the keyboard shortcuts. I hope they're learnable because yeah. Okay. All right. You understand. Okay. And by the way, I really like that you immediately get it when I told you what learnable means. Okay. The other thing that I kind of don't really get is why there needs to be a single layer that deploys to Vercel, deploys to Netlify, deploys to Railway, deploys to Cloudflare. reality would be that most teams would have one preferred platform. So that leads into the bigger question, the biggest question that I have for you is, how are you validating that people want what you are building?
Absolutely. So I think, just to clarify your question on, what is the point of having all these different integrations into the deployment platform, right? Like, I mean, so that is a great point. And what we've actually seen, we've talked to multiple different teams, and what we've seen is that people typically use something like Vercel or Netlify for deploying their front end, and they also have their backend deployment, and that's either done on Railway or in some cases AWS or like a dedicated VPS, right? And essentially what we want to do is we want to allow you to access those deployments and view those deployments directly from our platform without having to navigate or context switch onto a different platform, right? And typically what I would say is like a usual use case is maybe teams have 2 to 3 deployments, right? One of them would likely be kind of landing page, one of them would likely be documentation, one of them might be the core platform, and then there would also be a couple deployments for the backend, right? Like one might be like a webhook server, one might be like the serverless functions, whatever it is, right? So in that sense, I see engineering teams using kind of at least 2 to 3 different platforms when using Dimension's deployment kind of tooling. I mean, not really deployment tooling, but Dimension's deployment layer. And I also, there's a bunch of cool things we actually plan to do. So what we want to do is, we also want to build a specific set of very useful features that we can essentially propagate across all the different platforms that are integrated into Dimension. For example, we are currently building functionality for you to be able to view logs, like view serverless logs that you can view on Vercel directly on our platform, right? And what we also want to do is, even though Netlify, actually, I mean, even Vercel does not have this, it does not have log metrics, right? And they're like dedicated platforms that you can route your logs to be able to see that information, right? But what we want to do is we want to essentially build tools on top of these existing integrations that allow you to kind of leverage the power and have a more unified interface. For example, we want to build like a log metrics analysis page, right? And that works whether you're using Vercel, Netlify, or any other platform, right? Because all we need is build logs, and then we actually do the log metrics and other stuff for you, right? And that's just one small thing, right? Is being able to build like a unified layer of some very useful tools that are available across all the different tools that you use, right? So that's kind of one thing. And also, just to go on a question of how are you validating this, right? So I think that's a great question. And, obviously,
small quick response on the log thing before you, the validation thing, very important. Small quick response on the log thing, double check that user behavior is not that they dump the logs into a dedicated log observability tool, right? Like you are in danger of rebuilding Datadog.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a great point. And that's where Dimension comes in terms of how flexible we are and how we don't want to be locked in the ecosystem, right? And what I mean by that is, and by the way, like this was just kind of me thinking out loud in terms of,
Sure.
building like log analysis, right?
Sure.
But, the beauty of Dimension having everything so well integrated is that you don't have to go to Datadog to view your log analytics. You can just view it right next to your deployment, right? If you can see on Vercel, for example, I think they integrate with Checkly, right? And that allows you to kind of add checks for your deployments, right? And you can view those checks and the status of the checks directly from Vercel's UI, right? So what we want to do is, maybe what we can do is we can integrate with Datadog or I think Logflare or kind of some of the other platforms that do this, and just give them like a dedicated tab where they can view that information without having to go to like a dedicated logs platform, right? And it's right next to their deployment. It's just like you just hit tab and you're there, right?
Just think very carefully through how you integrate stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right.
100%. And
we can move on. I'm just flagging.
Sure. So in terms of validation, right? I think that's a great question, and that's also something we're thinking about very deeply. One big part of how we want to make sure that we're able to kind of obviously get useful metrics on the product is through very tight integration of analytics, right? We want to know, detailed analytics of how many issues were created per day. What is the average time users spend on a platform, right? How many messages are sent per day in chat? how many people in the team are logging into the platform, and what is the retention rate in that sense as well, right? It's obviously, that's one part of it. That is the metrics part of it. And I'd say that talks louder than feedback, because I've seen feedback tends to be biased sometimes, because, it's obviously, it's so much easier to like tell someone that their tool is fantastic, right? But, when you see the metrics, you'll actually know. But yeah, so I think that's one part of it. And the other part of it is also getting feedback on like kind of directly from them, right? And also, sorry, just kind of this just hit me, and this is a bit bit more about the previous question you had about the deployment layer, right? One more thing we were actually looking at was you being able to migrate your deployment platform with one click, right? And what I mean by that is, for example, if you just integrate Cloudflare, what we can do is we can migrate your Vercel deployment to Cloudflare pages with like a single click, right? So that's just an idea, right? Like that's just an idea of something that we want to look into into the future. And obviously we need to do some research into if that's viable and if that's possible, right? But the idea is that, we build a set of features on top of on top of the deployment platforms that you use, and we essentially standardize a set of features, right, on top of the platforms you use. And we also allow you to, do things like switching deployments or switching platforms with one click, because everything's so well integrated into Dimension, and we have access to kind of do that for you. So that like that's just one more, example thing we're kind of looking into is one-click migration, in which, Vercel's getting too expensive, move to Cloudflare pages, one click, right?
So quick
So
response.
yeah.
Quick response to that is you might be able to do some kind of translation process for the configuration file from Vercel.json to Cloudflare config file. But that is not the issue. The issue is that they are fundamentally different, right? One runs Node.js serverless,
Right.
the other one runs Cloudflare workers. So
I believe Cloudflare pages does have support for that, but I think, again, right, like there will definitely be things that are unsupported. For example, even if I'm switching from Vercel to like Netlify or vice versa, right? There will be a few things that are unsupported, right? So obviously we'd have to we'll have to let the user know that XYZ might not be supported. But yeah, kind of it's just something.
Think about this. Exactly. So there's a technical feasibility issue, and then there's a customer desire issue and customer frequency issue.
Yeah.
Right. So as a PM and CEO, is it worth spending engineering time at all on that? If actually, so I'm very skeptical about all this. I gave you 3 reasons why you should not do it. But if you somehow find that yes, like that, this all is all doable, all worth it, all, and someone in demand, that is very non-consensus, right? And your whole point is to be a big part of your job as a founder is to find somewhere where you're non-consensus and correct. So I would be like, hell no, I'll never do it. Don't even bother, right? But hey, if you look at it and you're like, actually, this is doable, and nobody like actually people want to do this, that would be an interesting point of view.
100%. No, I mean, I think again, we're actually looking at the migration thing as more of a potential customer acquisition channel rather than just because I know it's not very frequent that I switch platforms, right? I know it's like a once in a 6 months thing, right? But if we're able to offer that, this is also something I was discussing with a few people was, what is the best way to market Dimension, right? Because again, it's hard to kind of summarize the tool, right? I mean, I can tell you right now, it's a collaboration platform for modern engineering teams, but that would be super vague, right? So what we kind of might kind of look into kind of doing is having separate, and again, you'll be able to see this. One more thing we're actually planning to build, and which is not as much a actually no, I would argue it's more frequent than migrations, but we're actually building a permission sync system. And what that means is that when you actually change someone's permission from member to administrator on Dimension, their permissions are synced across every single dev tool you use, right? So what I mean by that is, for example, when you want to
double check that people want that.
Sorry?
Double check that people want that.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I've spoken to a bunch of founders, and they had said, and kind of they mentioned that they'd pay just for that, right? Kind of IAM for teams and management, right? Because I spend 15 minutes every time I need to onboard like an employee, and when it's a startup and it's just you, that's kind of painful, right?
Yeah, but also it can be very ugly when someone gets permissions that they're not supposed to have by accident because
true.
yeah.
100%. No, I mean, there's a lot of kind of there's obviously like a lot to like think about the features we're kind of building, right? I mean, I'm not here to say that every single thing will work out. You know, we want to build things and try them out. So yeah, so kind of that's how we kind of plan to kind of validate the product, right? Is through metrics as well as getting feedback directly from our customers. And yeah, so I mean, again, like I think we'll have a good idea of what works out or what specific thing is working out best once we kind of launch our MVP to our smaller customers. But you know, already kind of since we've started using the tool for ourselves, we've got like a ton of feedback from the team, and it's like like a lot of it is something that I feel would like hugely improve the product, right? And kind of one thing that we kind of noticed with like when dog fooding is that although we have integrated other platforms into Dimension, we haven't integrated the integrations enough, right? And what I mean by that is, for example, you know, you should be able to get something similar to like an arc view where you essentially hover over like kind of your calendar and you're able to view all the events, right? Similar to that, I'm talking about, you know, for example, when you hover over your deployments, you're able to see what are the latest deployments that happen without actually going to that tab, right? So with, without context switching, right? So there's a ton of different things we're actually looking into kind of to build. You know, and again, we plan to launch around mid next one. So there's some time for us to kind of build things and see how it goes. But yeah, that's in general kind of how we kind of plan to build a platform. But I'd say, you know, the biggest value prop for our platform is actually it's probably going to be the integration of chat with the different services you have on Dimension. And you know, we've found some really cool ways to do it. I'm not sure if I told you this before, but we are trying to build the world's first context-aware communication platform. And what I mean by that is, you know, for example, let's say I'm doing deployments on Dimension, right? And the deployment failed. And I want to debug it with my team. So I use GNC and then I go to chat, right? Now, what Dimension can do is, since you were previously looking at deployment logs, and since we also know that kind of X lines 1 to 5 failed, right? I'm able to actually share that with my team in one click, right? And we can collaborate on that directly on Dimension, right? So, you know, that's just one very simple use case in which I can share any information on any page on Dimension directly with my team to kind of collaborate on that, right? So previews in that sense are super powerful, and also being context aware of saying that you were previously looking at this and you probably want to talk about this, right? And also, I mean, it's important that it's not annoying, right? I don't want to be annoying in which, you know, we obviously make assumptions and those assumptions don't turn out to be true. And, you know, every time I'm going to a page and going back, it's always recommending me this. That's super annoying. But, you know, it's also about understanding what patterns most occur on Dimension and being able to optimize context awareness for that.
Interesting. If so, would you say that chat is 50% of the value proposition?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can
That's
actually show you kind of what we plan to build in chat, because some of these features are, I mean, at least I think are super powerful. Let me just show you. So one thing that I've seen, and, you know, I've also spoken to a few people about this, right? So one thing I've seen very regularly is that people say that, you know, we should have XYZ in chat, right? Or we should do XYZ, right? And to actually create that as an issue on your project management tool is work of context switching, going to the right team, going to the right project, creating an issue, typing in task name, selecting the assignee, and then adding the task, right? Now, what we actually plan to do is you can you know, when you say we should have a command K menu to speed up navigation, right? It should automatically prompt you to like create an issue on linear or add a task or add an issue directly on Dimension, right? And that allows you to essentially directly from a message, click on this one button. We use AI to understand the context of this text and automatically create an issue and a title and an assignee plus tags for this specific issue on linear or, you know, whatever, or like whatever other project management tool you're using that we integrate with, right? That's just one example thing that we plan to build. You can also actually, you know, on your sidebar, you'll be able to view different tasks and you can just check them off as you go with it, right? So as you complete tasks, you can just check them out directly from here, right? And, you know, in that sense, and also with slash commands, right? I think it's going to be super powerful for you to just be able to kind of interact with all these different platforms that you use without leaving chat, right? And you know, obviously, with like when you want to view deployments, it's there on Dimension, and also, you know, a future vision is to also have your deployments, your database, your kind of your serverless functions, your storage, and basically everything else on Dimension, right? So in that sense, Dimension is like the ultimate place for you to view anything you want to view. And there realistically shouldn't be any reason to actually move out of Dimension or go to some other tab. And you can just leverage Dimension shortcuts for everything, right? For everything from like navigation to viewing deployments to sending messages. You can do everything directly from Dimension, right? And we've also actually built a command K menu that we think would be super powerful. Right now it's very simple, but for example, it's obviously specific to the page you're kind of viewing, right? So if I go ahead, if I do command K, we're also like, yeah, so if I do command K, I can go ahead and navigate, right? So this is for navigation. And there is also this cool thing we're actually experimenting with is, we know Dimension can be a pretty massive platform, and we know that it can be challenging to understand how to do some things at specific times. And what we've done is, we're experimenting with something super interesting. So what we're doing is we're giving each button and each kind of text field on our platform some sort of description, right? And what we're doing is we're actually piping those, we're piping that information into AI to actually to allow you to kind of say, how do I do XYZ? And it literally shows you like an onboarding kind of thing of how you can do that. And it's specific to the question you asked, right? So like those are just like interesting things we're kind of building. I wouldn't say it's going to be something that's used extensively, but it's, it's just fun things that we want to build to kind of see how we can obviously make the platform easier to use and make it easier to understand shortcuts as well. I mean, there's like to be honest, there's a ton to do with teaching people about shortcuts. For example, I mean, the first thing would be to add shortcuts to tooltips, right? So that stuff will come. And I'd say that comes in the last couple of weeks before launch. But in terms of that, we're also exploring a lot in the AI sense. I mean, I already showed you kind of how we integrated it into project management. But yeah, kind of we're also looking into how to streamline workflows. And I feel like Dimension could be a super powerful place for AI. And the reason why I say that is because because essentially, if you see, everybody's integrating all the different platforms onto Dimension, right? And what that means is that Dimension has access to a huge amount of data, right? And with that data, we can create connections, and we can essentially find patterns and create connections that allow you to be 10x more productive, right? And that's because we understand context from Vercel, Netlify, your chat, your kind of your projects, linear, etc. Right? We can understand what you're building, right? And we can use that to actually to give you very relevant, like very relevant recommendations. So that's also something we're kind of looking into for the future.
That has potential. Uh, the devil is always in the details. And
100%.
okay. So you are 50, at least 50% a chat company. You do want to make sure that you have a very good story around how people use this in a realistic organization that is not 90% developers and product managers. In a typical larger startup, let's say you get up to, I don't know, like 100, 200 people, around half the company will not be engineers and PMs. There'll be sales, there'll be support, there'll be HR, there'll be, I don't know what else. I'm probably offending somebody by forgetting some job. Therefore, there will be two chat systems in every company, yours and Slack or Discord.
Right.
Is that okay? Is that something you want? Is that something you want to be seamless? Do you want everybody to be on your platform, or do you only want Eng people? Like EPD is what they call it, Eng product and design. I don't know, and maybe you don't know. But I do think that having two competing Slack chat platforms tires people out. I have Slack and Discord all the time, but I happen to be a dev community person, and that's my job. If I'm very sure that 50 to 75% of the population hates having two platforms for chat. So does that mean that you build a Slack integration and mirror Slack, just like you mirror Vercel, Netlify, GitHub, all this? It's possible, but it's a product decision, right? This all is downstream of understanding user behavior. Like, what do people enjoy? What is limiting them from actually adopting your chat platform? And a dangerous thing about chat platforms is you will see enthusiastic adoption from small teams. You will, I guarantee it. right? They'll tell you you love it. They'll tell you you're amazing. They'll tell you it's the future. And then you'll stop growing. Those are the
Got
reasons.
it. Got it. Got it.
Why I'm so confident is I saw this exactly happen to Spectrum.chat. Have you seen Spectrum?
I think I've heard of them. Yeah.
They have done very public postmortems about why they failed. Look into it. They are one of the top engine design teams I've ever seen, and they also failed. Before them, Gitter also.
I've heard
Yeah.
of Gitter. Yeah.
So it is challenging, but obviously, if you do it right, you have a $26 billion company. You know, so
Absolutely. No, I think that's a fantastic point, right? It's also, I guess it's tough, right? Because if you really want to be super focused on devs, product managers, and designers, right? Again, right? Like there's so many cases in which opinionated tools have won over kind of generalist tools. But I think kind of what you mentioned is absolutely valid in terms of like how do developers I mean, like I in fact I actually hate having two different platforms, by the way. I'm being super transparent about that. So I think that's that's like a fantastic point.
you're about to force it on your users.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
which
I think that's a
which
fantastic point.
again may be okay, may get you early traction, and then may also limit you in the future. It's very tricky.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic point, right? And while I don't think it would be super challenging to build integrations with intercom and like other kind of integrations that we would have for
No, it's not Intercom, it's Slack. That's the issue.
Right. So like the question would be, would you move everyone on the organization to Dimension, or would you only, or like, would you rather build a mirror with Slack, right? And
Okay, maybe I'll give you one success story that you can maybe study.
Mhm.
And this one I have less experience with. I only have second and third hand knowledge, which is Front. Are you familiar with Front?
No, haven't heard of it.
So Front is essentially collaborative email inbox for support teams. So everybody emails support@dimension.dev, right? And then there'll be like 10 customer support reps who like collaborate on like, oh, I got this one, and they chat and they collaborate. But it is restricted and only to customer support, and somehow they have made it work when others have not. I think mainly because they don't cast themselves as chat, even though they do chat. But I don't know. Study them, see what you come up with.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so up to you. I'm just pointing out the issues that I see, and then it's up to you to see if they're important or not. The other thing that I didn't see you mention is, you mentioned about oh well, like blah blah AI blah 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 to to integrate GitHub and all this. Like, have you seen the ChatGPT Python interpreter plugin?
Yes, I have.
That seems doable and more nearer scope than the stuff that you're talking about, which is you have to do a lot of R&D. Whereas this one is like, yeah, you can do it in a week. So I would encourage trying that. Essentially, basically saying like, hey, open chat session. Let's start on this ticket, and then chat with an AI and iterate through the diffs that you want to make. And then once you're done with the diff, commit, and then it just goes back into Git. Which you have built 80% of that. You need to build the AI version of that. I think that would be super interesting. And I didn't hear it in your pitch somehow.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a ton of different ways we could explore AI. One thing we're actually looking into is auto summarizing messages and updates using AI like that, right? But yeah, no, I think that's also super interesting, right? Like AI for code review, right? Or like AI for reviewing pull requests, or
No,
that kind of thing.
not review, writing code.
Okay, writing code. Okay, got it.
That
But like, I mean,
that would change your platform a little bit. Then you'll be a chat IDE.
Right. Wouldn't that technically be, similar to what, I mean, like, wouldn't that, so what would the difference be between using GitHub Copilot on VS Code versus doing it on Dimension?
Because the UX would be different because you're not in IDE. You're
Yeah,
it's a chat interface. Like Copilot is not a chat interface. And if
right.
you look at the demos, look very, very closely at the demos of the Python interpreter, they, you're able to iterate on snippets of code essentially and chunks of code. You're in, if you let it do what you already have, you can pull in context from other parts of your repo. And I think that's very powerful for like, hey, I have a ticket. I'm going to open it up in Dimension. It's going to suggest like start here. I already looked at it. Start here, and then it's probably wrong in some small way. Fix it, run tests, all this, and then once you're done, you have the diffs generated, and just kind of commit it back into the repo. I just think it's a very powerful workflow. Like once I've done it, I don't want to work any other way. In fact, I would choose to work inside of a chat session over VS Code because VS Code is too low level.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like
I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So I think it's interesting. Obviously, I don't have access. This is all theoretical. I don't even have access to the code interpreter. So I'm definitely extrapolating from the demos that I've seen. But the demos that I've seen are very compelling. To me, this is the first new like way to code apart from like autocomplete. Like Copilot, they have a separate window. And then if you look at the GitHub Copilot X, they have a separate window, but you still have to like copy paste back and forth. You have to know where to copy paste. You have to do it right. Why bother, right? So and obviously it's not linked to the Jira issue, which has more context and all that. So I think it's interesting. Again, another thing to validate. Separate topic, but still within the chat space. And this is a different type of audience. This is the SRE and DevOps people. So moving from developers to SRE and DevOps, they like to do this thing called chat ops. Are you familiar with it?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, look into chat ops. It's a whole category. It's a whole discipline. It's like there's pros and cons. There's people who love it, people who hate it. But again, if you're building a chat platform, you should know all this. And also you should know whether you want to support them, whether or you're like, nah, it's not really a thing. Just have an opinion, right? But
got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. I'll look into chat ops.
Cool.
Okay, perfect. And kind of lastly, I just wanted to understand, anything else you think we could improve on what we already have, right? In terms of what I was able to show you, was there anything that we can obviously improve? Like, I'd say chat is super early. So, like a lot of things that are kind of yet to be built, but, is there anything kind of we should improve from kind of what I kind of demoed to you right now?
I don't know. I'm very impressed by the products. You guys are amazing builders. I would So I would try to improve your understanding of the specific customer need that you solve. And it is very tempting to say we are the one place end to end solve everything. Either you have to execute perfectly, or you'll struggle somehow. And so your bundling story and a lot of other tools succeed by being unbundling stories. Like they do one thing well, you have to do a lot of things well. So okay, fine, but then is the ideal user, ideal customer, like if I ask you, do you have a clear description of your ideal customer?
Yeah, I'd say it's smaller engineering teams is our initial target audience.
Size, number?
I'd say anywhere from kind of 5 to like 30 to 40 engineers.
Okay, so tech stack.
Like in terms of they just use a modern deployment platform like Next.js a modern deployment platform like Vercel on Netlify, and typically something like Railway or maybe Cloudflare Workers or something else like that for the backend. and we can support something like AWS or dedicated servers in the future. Kind of being able to view that stuff directly from a platform.
I think that you will have to add AWS. You will have to add
100%.
render.com. You have to add who else? I mean, Railway is pretty good. Fly.io.
Right. Yeah. Fly.io, 100%. And again, one thing we can look into is we can remove the shitty UI and the shitty experience that AWS offers. And you can just interact with your resources and stuff on AWS directly from our platform.
You will be number 200 company to try that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen so many of them.
Okay. You can go even deeper than that. Do they work on, do they, yeah, so that 5 to 30 engineers, do they work on, I don't know, like a finance tool, education tool, like something like verticals?
Yeah. So primarily, like kind of something related to tech, right? So obviously like fintech is fine, but also looking at SaaS platforms, people who are building dev tools. I'd say we're a pretty good fit for any engineering team that is fairly technical, in terms of like it's not like I mean actually most engineering teams are technical, but most modern engineering teams will actually, I believe, will find substantial value from our platform. Like most people using modern tools, and obviously we'll expand our list of integrations and we'll expand to databases, storage, and other stuff. But I feel like most modern engineering teams using modern tools will actually benefit from our platform, right? And obviously teams building in tech.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a really good place to start. And yeah, I got no other feedback. This is your journey, and it's been really interesting. It's been really exciting to watch you explore and discover this space. And you've come a long way since the first time we talked. It's almost a year ago, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so then.
So yeah, I mean, it's great. Sounds like you're launching next week, so I'd be happy to support you in that launch, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Congrats. This is very impressive.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tejas, see ya.
Awesome. See you. Bye.